you know, a couple minutes ago I didn't have the, or seconds, I didn't have our mics cut off, so.
Oh, just now?
What happens behind the curtain?
I think all I said was, I don't want to change anything. I don't want to fuck with anything that's good. I think that's what I said.
Yeah, I think, yeah, no, we're not.
Yeah, when something's working, just keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, we just had Jonathan Zimmerman on the Tartle podcast. He wrote a book on free speech, and he mentioned that, and I really love that. He says, usually the answer is a really simple answer.
It always is.
Yeah.
Is
we
nature
bring
simple?
complexity.
Thank you. Yeah. I wonder what the White Sands incident has to say about free speech.
And we have another Dr. Daniel W. Fry book that you received.
I did. It's called Atoms, Galaxies, and Understanding.
So we'll hit that one.
I read the first couple pages and I was like, for crying out loud. There's too much.
Dr. Fry.
There's too much
Dr.
going on
Mick
here.
Fry.
Yeah, Dr. Mick frickin' Fry.
Throwing it down hardcore, huh?
Always, nonstop, but with great simplicity.
Oh, yeah. That's what I love. You know, and yeah, and the writing is amazing. I mean, this is 1960s, and it's not
It's really well
difficult
done
at all. Yeah.
No, it's easy to move through.
So let's get into Alan, is talking to him about the ship. Of course, he's a scientist and an engineer, so he's excited about understanding more about the ship. And we'll get right into it because this is a lot right now. He says this, while our bodies seldom leave the ship, our technology has provided us with almost unlimited extensions of our senses. So let me see that plural. Unlimited extensions of our senses.
Yes. So they got drones, right? Which is essentially this craft that Dr. Daniel Fry's in. And then they also have the ability for telepathic communication to read people's thoughts or to pick up on. I had a personal tutor once, world-class chemist, who designed most of the experiments for Space Lab. Do you know what that was?
Yes.
He designed most of the chemistry experiments, but he's also an expert on how smells got to the nose, and I learned a lot about it. So the extension of senses, you can replicate those things many different ways with technology to even fool what's going on. So you actually would never have to leave to sense something very far away.
Yes.
If they understand that
Disney's great at that with rides.
They're excellent at that.
Yeah.
So let's take Disney and evolve it 100 million years into the future.
Yes.
They're using that technology to feel that experience. And the thing is that they're not using virtual reality for the experience. They're actually capturing the experience truly for what it is and bringing the technology to bring it to their direct senses.
Well, you use the word drones, and Joe Rogan talked about this yesterday because someone asked his opinion on what all these. You have a saucer shirt on today. Awesome.
Yeah,
ask all these
chlorophyll now.
Yeah, you got me hooked on that stuff. It actually doesn't taste that bad to me.
Oh, I think it's good.
I drink it straight up. I like it with ice.
Yeah, I haven't done it with ice.
Yeah, ice makes it. It's actually not bad at all. It doesn't taste yucky.
I'm
Yeah, we'll have to do a shout out to that. We'll have to get the jar here in a little bit. But
quite fond.
He was talking about drones, and he said, in his opinion, and this is just a comedian, Joe Rogan's opinion, but I think he's right in this. He's like, I think most of the UFOs that we're seeing are drones. There are probes. He called them probes too, like they're probes that are coming out, just checking and seeing what's going on.
That's an interesting thought, because it's the same thing that Ra talked about too. So most of them are drones. The Playaran said most of them were drones.
Our military, yeah.
Yeah, our military. Why send the person? Say you are going into a planet.
That's our thought process, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like we have to have a pilot.
Why?
No, you don't.
Why you don't? Why? First of all, say you're going into an unknown atmosphere. Say you are an advanced civilization and you're going down to go check out this new world. What if they're very hostile? Would you want to send one of your people down there?
Dude, we have a helicopter flying around Mars right now. We have that going on.
What?
Yeah, look it up. Helicopter Mars. Look at the footage yesterday we saw.
What are you talking? I got so much chlorophyll on me. I don't even know what's going on in my life anymore.
Yeah, the helicopter footage yesterday. The one we have a helicopter at Mars right now. Is it manned? No. It's a little thing running around. What's the little guy on the track? Yeah, the track belt thing. They call it a helicopter. I think it's more of like a drone, isn't it?
It's a drone.
But like anything that we send out, that we've sent to Mars, does it have a human in it?
No.
So why would they do the? And we're apes. Why would they do that?
They would never do that.
Yeah.
It's illogical. It's stupid. It's too much of a risk.
Mm-hmm.
Say, for instance, right? say you were the U.S. government.
Mm.
You do have these craft.
Nefarious.
You do have these craft. You crash one of them.
Mm-hmm.
The enemy captures it. Do you want to have an American pilot in the inside?
Mm.
Hell nah. Because
We've
you don't
had
want
that.
them to think that you've had that technology or you currently do.
POWs, I mean, that's a thing. And then you get to torture them and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, but think about that for the other country. Like, oh,
Yeah.
wait a minute. This is actually a terrestrial technology?
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem. It is always in your favor to send a drone without a human being in it. And if you can extend your senses,
If if the U.S. government's really smart, they would make it look like it was alien technology in case something happens.
100%.
Then they can just blame it on that.
Easy to blame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
They could fly one out and just like essentially just melt New York City and they'll be like, must be extraterrestrials.
Yeah, look at the cockpit. It has weird symbols in it.
Yeah. Oh, wait, what are you talking about? Weird symbols.
Yeah, no, I get that 100%. This is what I thought was interesting with the Comet. So it provides us with almost unlimited extensions in our senses so that, this is very important, this shows you the evolution of their race, so that for the purpose of observation, learning, and understanding.
Is Ayn Rand flying around with these guys? The purpose of observation. What do you have if you're a baby in the world? What do you do before anything? You look around. All you do is look before.
Yeah, don't you
talk.
learn the first 2 years? You learn more than you've ever learned your whole life, or
Right,
something like that.
because you're absorbing things through observation, right? And then what's the next stage?
Learning.
Oh, and then you learn. I'm observing.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to act within this realm of observation. Oh, there's learning happening here. That works, that doesn't, cause, effect. And what's the next part?
Understanding.
Understanding. Now I know what should be done and should not be done. Why? Because I have been able to observe this.
See, this is a part in our society, and I want people to understand that. They may observe and they may learn, but they're not practicing understanding.
Yeah.
This is the disconnect. This is why you don't execute on things. This is why you can observe a lot of information. I can go on Instagram right now for 30 minutes and check out all my, everything that I have on there and everybody I follow. But am I taking the time to understand any of it? It's like when you look at a piece of art, it's a perfect example. It's like you can observe it, you can recognize the beauty of it. Like,
yeah,
there's a Miata, super cool. Our sponsor, QualityMazdaNM.com, shout out to them.
Nice plug.
There's a Miata, their Mazda 3 or whatever. I can look at the way they designed it, look at the lines, look at the Kodo Solo Motion and everything. Like it's supposed to be like, even though it's standing still, it's supposed to be like a crouching cheetah.
It's moving.
Yeah, it's moving. Yeah, all that. And the Japanese aesthetic on it. But at the end of the day, am I understanding it?
That's the real question.
Can I understand what the engineer's intent was?
Yeah. That's precisely correct. And interaction allows you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
They said almost limitless. Their limitation is the fact that they are not there.
Yes.
That is the final limitation.
To have the full experience.
They can do everything but put themselves there.
Which is where, with AR and everything else that we're heading, I think that we will be in this direction too. But will we use it? Is our purpose, because he said our purpose, is our purpose observation, learning, and understanding?
That's a great
question. Or is
question.
it control, war, division,
all those other things? That's a great question for humanity.
Yes.
But honestly, dude, that's a choice we have to make. And we just hope that we make it sooner rather than later, because to have that much bloodshed and that much loss to then learn a lesson is pathetic. How is it that they have the ability to learn so many lessons without creating chaos or death? Because they want to observe. They want to know, and they want to understand. And through understanding is where you find these things that truly align us with creation itself.
Yeah, he says we can be intimately present at any time and at any point which we may choose. So they're choosing this to observe or to visit, provided that the point we want to reach or see is within a few million miles of our ship. Oh, that's our reach. We only have a few million miles from our ship.
Yeah, which is actually it's not that far.
Well, yeah, when you look at
in the sense of space, but
right.
to us, they're like a few million miles. Like, what the hell are you talking about? And they can be intimately close. Whether it's electronic modulation to create some sort of telepathy to send an image, or for you to hear something, you got to be within a certain range. If they need to project an image, if they need to physically move themselves or get a craft there in a rather decent amount of time, They have to do some sort of work, and they have to be within a specific range. The difference between these individuals and the Plejaren themselves, the Plejaren have the ability to shift themselves out of time. It seems that they, within the quality of how they travel, do not move out of that dimensional shift.
Yes.
Because there's a physical craft there, it seems to me that they are dimensionally shifted in our dimension. The Plejaren have dimensionally shifted themselves. They can move through time to look at things. Not to get into the other book that Dr. Daniel W. Fry wrote.
Dude, you're skipping ahead.
No, I know, but
You're like the guy that read the end of the book, I know.
no, there was just
Is this a spoiler alert?
there was a point that, when you think about energy
Right.
requires force. And within that force, there's an acceleration of force, these parts of physics. So because they're limited by force, 1,000,000 miles, tells me that there's a specific energy that they are limited to. They're not
Right.
in an unlimited session. And they
Right.
even describe that their shifts have some sort of net loss, right? They do require recharging.
Yeah, and I like this part to continue what you're saying. Our abilities may be somewhat startling and incredible to some of your people, but they are not as startling and incredible as the scientific abilities your people now have compared to the abilities your own ancestors possessed a few hundred years ago. And I'm going to use an example.
This is a great point.
Neil, who's the physicist? Neil
Bohr.
deGrasse Tyson.
I
or
thought you were
whatever,
talking about
yeah.
Niels Bohr. There's multiple.
No, yeah.
Niels deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah. He was talking about this, and it's so amazing. You go from 1900, for thousands and thousands of years, we use horses for transportation,
Yeah.
to 1920, so 2 decades. The whole industry. If you think about all the industry that had been built for thousands of years, you had blacksmiths, you had,
Carpenters,
leather workers.
Leather workers. It was all
that
around
supported,
horse.
what was the industry that supported the horses?
Yeah.
You had stables,
Mhm.
you had food being grown for the horses. In the 1920s, horses became so cheap. It literally upended that whole industry in 20 years. And so we're seeing autonomous driving cars, which I think is, and he talked about that. He's like, literally, that's the future. That's what's going to happen in the next 10 years. What the computer's already figuring everything out. He goes, we have 30,000 deaths a year. We may have a Tesla hit a crowbar in the middle of the road, but now with collective data, and this is something we can talk about on Tartle, but now with collective data, the Tesla knows, we're just using Tesla, but once all cars are this way, they'll be able to speak to each other and know that there's a tire iron in the road.
Why are
And then
people
they'll tell
throwing
all the
tire
other
irons on
cars.
the road?
Yeah. But he was using that example. So we may go to 3,000 deaths instead of 30,000 deaths.
Okay.
But that is the future autonomous cars.
Right.
And that's what they're saying. They're saying your ancestors possessed a few hundred years ago. Look at what you've done, humans.
Yeah.
And that should excite us and also make us fearful in the sense of what we can do as a collective and where we're headed. And I'm not, because we could have never guessed. You've seen all those things from the World Fair and all that.
Love those.
Well, I mean, what was the main with Al? Was it Al the computer, the big one? Space Odyssey.
Oh, HAL.
Yeah, Hal. What was it? Space Odyssey.
Yeah, 2001 Space Odyssey.
Yeah, so
Stanley
2001, we were going to have these big, huge mainframe one computer, and that was like this AI that was going to tell us everything. Well,
Yep.
that didn't happen.
Kubrick.
Our computers are this.
Well, actually, he had tablets
Yeah.
in that film. Kubrick did. Tablets came out in the mid 80s.
Yes. Yeah.
With interactive brokers. So literally, we were hitting it before it was actually predicted.
Yeah. Are the original Star Trek same thing?
Yeah, science fiction becomes science fact. The
Yeah.
question is, in the simplicity of the way we develop our technology, will define the rate at which we achieve things that seem absolutely magical, truly magical,
Yes.
phenomenal.
Well, I mean, look what's happened in the last 10 years, especially in the advances of medicine.
Right.
I mean, they said for every year is like multiple of 7.
But don't you realize that we have increased a lot? Neil deGrasse Tyson is correct. We have increased a lot. But there's also so much complexity that has come with it. And I think that's going to be an upper limiting bar for us in our further development. I truly do. And in order to remove that bar for us to continue with our evolution of technology to expand it forward, we need to remove that bar by finding the simplicity of our technology. making it less complex.
Yes.
It is far, far too complex. And I think that will be a huge limiting problem for us. And the only way we'll do that is to go back to these creational laws and look to nature to help us solve what needs to be solved, to simplify what can be simplified.
Yeah, and same page, he brings it back to creation. He brings it back to the simplicity that you're talking about. It says, you are perfectly correct when you point out the symbol of the tree and the serpent is a common one in the history and the legends of your planet. It is also common in ours. The explanation is we have at least in part a common ancestry.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands of years ago, some of our ancestors lived upon this planet Earth. There was, at that time, a small continent in a part of the sea-covered area which you have named the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, interesting.
Some of your ancient legends refer to the sunken landmass as the lost continent of...
Lemuria.
Yeah, Lemuria.
Also shortened to be named as Mu. Mu.
Yeah. Our ancestors had built a great empire and a mighty science upon this continent. At the same time, there was another rapidly developing race upon a landmass in the south central of your present Atlantic Ocean. In your legends, this continent is named Atlantis. So let's stop there.
Let's talk about these items. This is cross-corroborated by the Plejaren, cross-corroborated by Ra, cross-corroborated by Herodotus, the first historian, cross-corroborated by Plato. How is it that this thing shows up all the time everywhere? Why is this what we say is a myth? Why is it so powerful? There is an energetic signature around these names in Earth's history with our ancestry. Something was lost. Something must have happened that caused this thing to disappear. It could not have been spoken about so much to just be uprooted and disappear. If you look at all other myths, some things still hang around on the world. There are some things that, attribute themselves to that myth. But where is the thing that is attributed to this myth?
Even if it is a myth, let's say worst case scenario, it's a myth.
Good. Go ahead.
It's still a warning to us,
Yes.
especially as United States and China.
That's correct.
Because here's what he says.
I love this. Go ahead. Nail it.
At the same time, there was another rapidly developing race upon a landmass, which is Atlantis. So we have Lemur, Mu, and we have Atlantis. There was a rivalry between the two cultures in their scientific progress.
What did China say the other day? We want to be the world's next superpower, and we will do it with technology.
Yes.
What is the U.S. saying? We are a world superpower, and we have the technology. This is the same damn rival, just with a larger amount of landmass.
Mm-hmm.
What happened with these two rivals, Jason?
It was friendly at first, but became bitter with the passing years, as each race flaunted its achievements in the face of the other.
Do we not do this all the time? China's like, ooh, we sent up rockets. Look at our supercomputer.
Mm-hmm.
Look at all this other stuff we're doing. Look at the U.S. Oh, we got SpaceX. We're doing this. We're doing that. We have this technology. What happens at that point? You think that the technology is actually saving you and bringing you ahead, but it's actually creating a cultural divide. And through this divide creates a lack of understanding. And from this lack of understanding, people begin to rage. Things spiral out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And then you try and prevent that, but you can't. Then you get this false idea of superiority, driven by the idea that technology is the key to superiority, because you don't lack and respect the value that there are other human beings. We look at these people as advanced, but they make the same mistakes we do. And we need to learn from that. That's why they're back to talk to us. Don't screw it up like we did.
Well, he's going to give a perfect example right now of why in the 60s, the 40s, 50s, and 60s, why we saw so many UFOs. This is what he says. In a few centuries, their science had passed the point of development which exists here now. Not content with releasing a few crumbs of the binding energy of the atom, as your physicists are now doing. They had learned to rotate entire masses upon the energy axis. Energy is equal to 75 million of your kilowatt hours, resulted from the rotation of a bit of matter about the size of one of your copper pennies.
So here's how this works. We usually have a giant chunk of plutonium that we use, or uranium-236, to turn into 238 to create some sort of nuclear fuel for our fission process. Put it in bombs, put it in reactors, whatever it might be. It's a rather sizable chunk. The refinement of the electrons within that process, the fission process of that splitting, if you can redirect the angles of that by actually creating a sense of spin, you accelerate the energy at which that split happens. What they did is they could accelerate the amount of power in that down to the size of a penny rather than what I would say is an oversized softball.
So, yeah, I wonder what a normal nuclear reactor or nuclear bomb, how many kilowatts is that?
They do it in value of TNT. So...
Because 75 million of your kilowatts into the size of a copper penny. So 75 million of your kilowatts. That would be interesting to see how much power that was compared to something nuclear we've created.
Right here.
There should be how many kilowatts in a nuclear bomb?
That's 1,000 watts. It's huge. Okay, so you have to do a conversion. So the Tsar bomb, remember the one they did in Russia?
Mm-hmm.
Was 50 megatons. So we'll do 50 megatons to kilowatts. Oh, okay. There's a significant difference here. So we'll just do 10 megatons is 1.16 billion kilowatts.
So they were able to, the size of one of your copper pennies. How big was that bomb?
It was literally this big.
Yeah, but I mean, how big was that bomb that you're talking about?
It was absolutely enormous. It was huge.
Yeah, that's what. So I mean, there's a big difference between taking something this big and making it 75 million of your kilowatts compared to taking something as large as this room. I mean, I don't know what the size and width of the thing was, but
just because what happens is for those bombs, for them to work, you take charges and you surround the actual nuclear fuel device that sits in the inside, and you force a rod, I guess, in a sense, to fuse both of these halves together, these hemispheres, by an outside force. They put the TNT on the outside and they blow it into one another. And the rate at which that happens with the amount of force creates the fission chain reaction that gives you that massive explosion. But what they're saying is we don't even need any of that. We can just change the axis at which this fission process occurs at a fraction of the size, like an incomparable fraction, and do far more destruction.
Yeah, and he says, with the constantly increasing bitterness between the two races, and with their constantly increasing command of destructive energies, says China, U.S., it was inevitable that they should eventually destroy each other.
Of course it's inevitable. It's all tit for tat. Mm-hmm. I get a peg higher. You get a peg higher. You keep driving your science up and up and up. And then the one moment, Jason, you hit a point of criticality, politicalness, whatever it might be, and somebody sends something away, and you've created a bomb that is so strong, there's no going back.
Yeah, and I want to end the episode with this quote, and you can talk about that. He said, the energies released in that destruction were beyond all human imagination. They were sufficient to cause major shifts in the surface configuration of this planet, and the accompanying radiation was so intense and so widespread that the surface became totally unfit for human habitation for several thousand years.
Half-life, when there's an explosion. It was so strong of a half-life. Usually after, when we did Fat Boy and Little Man or whatever the heck it was, over in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the half-life was about 40 to 50 years, where the radiation is there, but it dissipates to such a point that it becomes insignificant. This is so intense for the entire atmosphere of Earth. This radiation, this cloud of radiation, was thousands of years of that half-life. Nothing exists. The force was so strong, it shifted the tectonic plates, and through that shift, changed the polarity of the Earth, actually shifting it upon its axis, changing weather patterns. When we do this, we're not only killing ourselves, but we kill all life at the same time. And then it has to readjust. You know, what we view as the North Pole now was probably never the North Pole. And we have to look to be careful what we do with our own science, and there is great possibility that we can have effects on creation that are extremely negative, that will make our future completely inhabitable. And if we don't have the technology to lift off of this planet, you're totally screwed. Fortunate for them, they did.
Yeah, and Alan says this, but this discussion must wait until we return. Our time is more than up.
Correct.